Hello, all. My name is Kabrea, and this is the first installment of a series in which we will discuss Michael Porter's The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Women. Now, I first came across this book through TikTok, maybe in late 2022. And what got me was the chapters, you all. The chapters were just so chilling to go through, and I'll go ahead and place them here, especially when you take into account the fact that this was published in 2001, y'all. So it is very interesting to see how these themes have progressed over the past 20 years. So just a little background about the author, Michael Porter. He is a faculty member at Savannah State College, and he has also worked as a social worker for the state of Georgia. He is currently 75 years of age and still resides in Savannah, Georgia. Mr. Porter also gets into some of his experiences working with Black women during his time as a social worker in the state of Georgia throughout the text. So in this segment, we will get into the first 4 chapters of part 1, and as the series progresses, we will move on to the other chapters. Okay, y'all, so before we dive in, I'm going to read a quick overview of the book. It has been long argued that women, especially Black women, have been relegated to second-class status in American society, and despite modern advances, remain subject to a debilitating discrimination in many areas of life. This book represents a fresh perspective on the many facets of sexism experienced by African American women, addressing such issues as wage disparity, spousal abuse, and the rising rate of AIDS among Black women. It also examines the roots of sexism among African American males, including the effect of gangster rap music on perceptions of Black women, and offers strategies for change. So this is a conversation that Mr. Porter was trying to wake up in 2001. So again, just think about how these themes have progressed. So let's get into part 1. Cause, Effect, and Madness. Chapter 1 is titled When Love Hurts, Spouse Abuse and Sexual Molestation, which is still so prevalent in the Black community today in 2023, and it is so overlooked. There are so many red flags and warning signs in regards to the sexualization of Black children that just get tossed to the side because they've become normalized. And just because something is normal does not mean that it's right. I don't know why that just doesn't click. But again, just because something is normal or considered normal does not make it right. I would say it a third time because I just don't know why it doesn't click. But yes, too much sexualization of Black children is normalized even to this day. So I'll go ahead and read a quick excerpt. While working as a child and family therapist, I had the opportunity to help many families deal with issues of domestic violence, verbal and physical abuse of the female spouse, and sexual molestation of the children. In my practice, I've found that insecurities, the use of control and fear to assure loyalty, and the displacement of anger were the reasons men battered their wives. Morally unrestrained, lustful perversion, was the primary dynamic in the molestation of female children. Ironically, these dynamics are also active in the patriarchal white male supremacist power structure. Consequently, American society does not embrace trusting, patient, secure, male to female relationships. So here, Mr. Porter, he's dipping a toe in the harm and the influence that the white male patriarchal system has. And we're going to get deeper into this as the text goes on, but this is more so like an introduction of because there's so much harm. And he will go on to define more of what makes up that system, but here we're kind of getting an introduction to that harm. Insecurity, control, and anger displacement arise when white men experience job loss, financial setbacks, and diminished social status or sexual impotence. Feelings of love for the wife are selfishly based on the husband's material status and his view of adequate sexual functioning, which is not necessarily from the wife's view. A man believes that if he loses his money, he'll lose control or influence over his wife. The dangerous logic is that women can be purchased, and that if all else fails, meaning the husband loses control, physical violence will set things right. So the wife is physically beaten. Remember, this same logic is inherent in the white male supremacist power structure. If all else fails, kill or injure the opponent. Just really sit with that. If all else fails, meaning that if men even feel the inkling, like even if that's not the case, even if they just perceive that they are losing control, losing dominance over women, they're going to resort to violence, because that is the response under the white male patriarchal system. And I think that it needs to be discussed more, that this doesn't always have to mean physical violence. This can also mean, verbal, psychological, emotional, financial violence against women. Just as a result of a man perceiving that he might have lost some dominance over a woman under the white male patriarchal system. I'll go on. The dynamic existing among too many African American men, many of our boys too, is what I call the charisma factor. The belief that charm, attitude, and persuasive speech compel women to desire their company. So again, this idea that women should be offering some level of submission, whether that be in the wifely realm or even just a man finds himself to be really charismatic, and of course people want to be around me. Inflated ego, women are compelled to submit and offer him their attention, just based off the strength. Mr. Porter goes on to say that the following female behaviors and actions can trigger extreme feelings of insecurity and rage in some African American men. And here is what he lists. A perceived show of disrespect. Not even, it might not even be disrespect for real. It's just a perceived form of disrespect. A change in dinner preparation time. A visit to her mother's home. A visit to a female friend's house. I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna say why I would assume, from my viewpoint, these would be triggering to them. A perceived show of disrespect, again, it would be, why are you not submitting to me? Why are you not engaging with me in a way that is submissive and respectful, even though I might not have any respect for you as a human? You should still be bowing down and giving me something. Y'all should be getting something. A change in dinner preparation routine. A change in servitude. Like, why are you not serving me in a way that's consistent and that I can expect? It's given slavery. A visit to her mother's home. I told y'all in other videos, I am never too cute to flex on the older women that have more experience with men, and that a lot of the times they be trying to give warning signs, they be trying to let us know, and we just think, oh, you're mad because you're old and things didn't work out for you. You need to listen to them. And I think that not just a visit to the mother, but a visit to any older woman, it's like, oh, what are they over there talking about? Or what is she saying to her? You know what I'm saying? What game is she putting her on to? A loss of control, a potential loss of control. A visit to a female friend's house. Again, that is, I would assume, a perceived loss of control. What is the female friend over there telling her, putting in her head? And they're maybe boosting her, girl, you're too pretty to deal with that. You don't have to, settle for them. That's going to lead to a loss of control if that woman begins to feel, yeah, you're right. I should leave so and so. Like, loss of control. I forgot about this one, y'all. A smile from a former male schoolmate. Some men respond by slapping, punching, kicking, strangling, stabbing, cussing, or drawing a gun on their wives and girlfriends. Again, that seems more so, again, like the loss of control, but also insecurity about what another man might have to offer their female partner. Again, just this idea of the male ego being very fragile, and how just their perception of losing control or being disrespected can cause them to become enraged. Mr. Porter goes on to say, the control dynamic has entered at this point. If charisma fails, then force must prevail. Of course, the wife is blamed for this destructive behavior, anger displacement. Let's examine a case in point. The August-September 2000 issue of Heart and Soul magazine features a painfully revealing article entitled Behind Closed Doors, Living a Life of Abuse. The article explains Lola's loving relationship with Kevin. As long as Lola was dependent upon Kevin, both are African American, the relationship went well. But after Lola enrolled in college, Kevin began to physically abuse her. It is my belief that Kevin felt threatened by Lola's desire to better herself in a way that he could not control, and he attempted to regain control through inflicting violence upon Lola. And yeah, honestly, like I'm blessed to say that I've never had a man try to physically bring about control over me, but I can't say the same for my mother. I definitely had a really jealous father, and and they were both unambiguously Black Americans. So it was like anytime that my mom would go off to school or just would get a new job or just would do anything where he didn't have a say so, or he wasn't a part of the decision making, or he saw that she might have the potential to go on and maybe make some decisions for herself that didn't involve him, he became very violent and he became very angry, and he became her biggest hater. He would tear her down in any way he wanted to, whether that be physically at times, but it was mostly verbal. And me personally, I have always experienced verbal abuse from men that were, I hate to say jealous, but it really does give jealous, because it's like anytime that you are here and your trajectory is going to continue to go, but you're dealing with someone that's just here, you're crazy if you don't think that there's some kind of jealousy in that dynamic, especially we're talking about this white patriarchal system that tells these men that their value is placed upon, where they are economically and how much money they're making. And when they're not lining up with that, self-worth is on zero. So they're looking at you crazy. And there have just been so many instances where if a man felt like I was getting out of his range and wanted to do my own thing, hey, I'm noticing things about you I don't really like. I kind of want to get back to, seeing what else is going on for me out there and not include you. Then now I'm getting verbally attacked and told that I was never worth this anyway. Just whatever they can say to bring you here so that they can make themselves feel like they're here and they can exert that power over you, they're going to do it. Girl, they're going to do it. So you really might as well, at the first hint of jealousy, girl, just go. Mr. Porter goes on to say, when a man physically or verbally abuses a woman, he is asserting his belief that the woman is inferior. And that's what I be feeling like. Like, I feel like when they are dealing with someone, like in my instance, like when I would be kind of having a higher trajectory than them, it was like you're going against this belief that I should be where you are or higher. So it's causing me to feel a resentment towards you. And then again, that anger displacement. So instead of, taking that rage and making it, more of a passion or a drive for me to better myself, I'm mad at you now because what are you doing? Who do you think you are climbing the ladder and bettering yourself? Now I'm mad at you because you should be below me and you're not. So, girl, I don't know. Mr. Porter goes on to say, it is quite possible that some abusive men may develop sadistic traits. They may begin to enjoy abusing their mates. Again, we must acknowledge that sadistic behavior is woven into the fabric of white patriarchal power structure. We are socialized to enjoy viewing violence, and this enjoyment is at times transformed into a desire to actually do the violence. Yeah. And you've seen that more so, I was younger during the time that this book came out, but I know now in this day and age, there is such a glorification of violence. I mean, there is crime shows on every network. People really get a kick out of learning about people falling into these horrendous fates where they had violent deaths. And it's grown to be like a pastime to kind of idolize the serial. Like, it's really weird. I actually had to get up off of watching them crime shows and stuff when I started to think about just how like low frequency and influential, just consuming that type of media repetitively was, and the programming with it. Like, I'm not at all a violent person, but I could see how it could cause some people that, might feel powerless in other areas to kind of get a hold of those sadistic traits and feel powerful through causing harm to others, or get a kick or get a rise out of causing harm to others. And it's like Michael is saying, Mr. Porter is saying, it is so woven into the fabric of American culture that, I mean, it's no wonder that it has this much influence over the Black community as well. Mr. Porter goes on to say, when men sexually molest female children, they have given in to a base, morally unchecked desire to experience sex with someone they can conquer. The female child is a guinea pig for the male's lustful desires. He can enjoy the newness of the child, and he can do as he pleases with her and avoid any negative consequences. Avoidance achieved through instilling fear into the child victim. He can have sex with someone who is pure, innocent, and uncontrollable. Oh my gosh. And there's so much to unpack with just that in itself. And even in a lot of the discourse I hear, like in the Black community, about wanting someone with a low body count, or like wanting someone that hasn't had a lot of sexual experience, even though they have 6 or 7 baby mamas themselves, it's rooted in pedophilia. Like, that's very much so rooted in pedophilia and sexual perversion. So y'all really broadcasting that real loud, and it sounds crazy. Also, you all, unfortunately, I was a victim of child sex abuse, and I was at such an age that it was more so, I don't know if it was fear, but it was more so confusion about what happened. And it was only one instance, and I do remember there was a level of fear. There was a discussion about not saying anything, and what do you do, like, as a kid? I mean, what do you do? Like, there's the power structure is off. An adult is doing this to you and then telling you, not to say anything. You automatically have a sense of subjugation to an adult as a child. So it's very sexually perverse, and it's sad. Like, I don't really have a lot of words for it. I do just, in this day and age, anytime I see any instance of a sexualization of children, like I do at least name it, even though people disregard it for the most part. I do name it, and I try to call it out as much as I can. Mr. Porter goes on to say, this society only superficially advocates the teaching of moral discipline. The primary motivating value is to do whatever feels good. In a morally corrupt society in which sexual freedom really means doing whatever you want as long as you can get away with it, women must protect themselves and their daughters. The message, open season on females is over, and must be transmitted through example, not rhetoric. Everything from physically incapacitating the abuser to pushing for stronger punishment through legislation must be undertaken by women. Only then will this pathological behavior end. Yeah. And it's sad because more than ever, 20 years later, I don't see any push for really holding these abusers to any kind of consequence. When you do call these people out due to them being these people's faves that they idolize, they just tell you you're a hater and that you're broke. And they continue to upload the abuser. They continue to put their abusers on pedestals. So it's really sad. Like, it actually makes me emotional because I just see it day in and day out, even 20 years later. I talk about on this page. I wish I didn't have to keep mentioning this person, but Kodak Black is a modern day rapper that sexually assaulted a minor, pled guilty to it in a very violent way, in such a violent way, did jail time for it, but is still not missing no meals. There's been no real consequence to this person. They pretty much did their time and came out to countless brand endorsements, countless support from their fans, and nobody really cares. Nobody really cares. It's just fake. Like Mr. Porter is saying, it's just virtue signaling. Nobody really cares about the sexualization of children. Okay, y'all, let's move on to chapter 2, which is Bitch, Hoe, or Queen, the role of women in rap music and videos. And baby, I have been dying to get into this topic for a hot minute now, because I know just how much this affected me in my Black girlhood in the early 2000s. I mean, all the way up until now. I'm 28 now, and I know the questions that representation sparked in my mind all throughout my girlhood, my teenagehood, and even my womanhood. Not so much my womanhood because I see through the guys now, but yeah, I do remember this having an effect on my self-esteem, my viewpoint on my place as a Black woman in society, my function as a Black woman in society, all that. We'll get into all of them. But I'll go ahead and get into the excerpt. Mr. Porter says, teenagers and young adults are the major audience for rap music and videos. They are being desensitized to exploitation while being conditioned to love and enjoy the exploitation of women without even knowing that this is being done to them. And yes, like I'd be looking back, like even in like my college days, like maybe my early college days, like just some of the songs and stuff that I would sing along to. And I was like, oh my gosh, like they really did something with this one. And now I go back and I listen to the lyrics and I'm like, you said you was gonna that and throw her to the, and you don't give a, and she could starve, and you ain't giving no money, and you don't love her, and you don't trust her, and she can, and you know, like I was just like, damn, like y'all really was so blatant in your hatred of women, more specifically Black women, most specifically dark-skinned Black women. Every other line was red bone, yellow bone, I don't want no dark B. Like, God damn, like it was so blatant. And you really do become desensitized, because I think about, you know, music didn't, I don't know, I wouldn't say that the content drastically differed within the time span that this book was released and, the time I'm talking about it. But, I was a kid in like the 2000s, the early 2000s. So, I can't really think of the music that was coming out at that time, but I know that it had a similar content base of misogyny and misogynoir and you're gonna F this B. And Mr. Porter goes on to say that I believe that young girls watching rap videos develop two destructive beliefs. They begin to view themselves as unattractive if they don't resemble the half-naked, made-up, light-skinned females with long hair in the videos. And they begin to believe that it's all right for boys and men to treat women like toys, especially if the boy or man has an expensive car and money. All she has to do is provide the sex. So yes, when I talk about navigating my Black girlhood and womanhood, I do remember this having a specific effect on my self-esteem and where I thought I fell on the chart of beauty standards, because at this time African American men were perpetuating a lot of the colorism, texturism, featureism, just general anti-Blackness, not just in their music, but in their representation in their music videos. And I do specifically remember watching and looking and saying, oh, well, okay, so this is the standard of beauty. I'm not given that. So, okay, I do see, a dark skin or a visibly Black woman in the video, but she's like being sexualized down to the ground. Like the other girls get to play, the vixen role where they're, doing something, normal, still being exploited, but maybe just they have a scene where, they open the door and let the person in. But then you have the dark-skinned Black woman all oiled up and twerking and, just overly sexualized. So it was just like, what is my function? What is my function in society as a Black woman? Am I just a tool for sex? Because clearly I'm not the beauty standard that is to be upheld and worshipped. I'm just the one that they call when they need to give sex. So it's very confusing. It is. Mr. Porter goes on to say, under patriarchal white male supremacy, every act is driven by profits. Understand, women and girls are the product of rap and music videos. Women are not to be protected, loved, and respected, but are to be purchased and used. And yeah, when you look, it really be giving women as product placement in the videos. Like, it's like they really just be standing there dancing, what's the scandally dress, is that the correct term? And the men are just, they are getting to present their artistry and whatever that looks like to them, while the girls are just product placement to kind of draw the viewer in so they can consume that media. And yeah, like, this is extremely exploitive. And I think that too continues to play into that theme of women not being human. Like, we're just objects. Like, we're just objects for sex, or that's really it. Like, objects for sex, objects for the consumption of the male gaze. Mr. Porter goes on to say, women must protest the blatant wholesale exploitation of women. Women must critique the rap songs their children listen to. Women must monitor and boycott rap videos that exploit women. Women must protest rap concerts that feature violent, exploitative rap artists. Women must sponsor, purchase products, and otherwise support those female rap artists that are about liberation. Women must challenge the wickedly clever argument that these destructive videos and songs are art. Women must challenge African American rap artists about exploiting their own people. Y'all, these are things that I personally try to do in my day-to-day life, whether that be via social media or in my engagements with people, face to face, interpersonal engagements. I offer these critiques. I do. And I face a world's worth of kickback. Again, you're called a hater, you're called rogue, you're jealous. They love to say you're jealous. It's like, I'm not a capitalist. Like I don't care about any of this. Like I don't care about money. I don't care about society. I don't care about any of this. Like I'm spiritually wealthy. Why would I be jealous of someone that has material wealth when I'm spiritually wealthy? So that insult is always annoying, especially when you are trying to really challenge, why do y'all support these people if they are causing Black people harm collectively? Why is there such a pour of support into these people? Like it really makes you question those people individually. Like it makes you question their politics. Like, are you really for Black people? Because you continue to support and get behind people that play into the destruction of the Black community. Very anti-Black. So are you yourself supporting anti-Blackness? Like which one is it? But yeah, I hate to be like a grandma, but it really be like I have a younger sister and she's kind of male centered. So she'll listen to a lot of songs that are really degrading, and I'll be like, oh, what did they say? Or, something like that. I won't be like overbearing about it. But there have been points where the lyric content has been so horrible where I've literally been like, I can't listen. Like, you have to cut this off. Like, cut somebody else, anybody else on. Like, literally anybody but this. I can't sit here and listen to music, which is supposed to be a pleasurable experience, and be degraded. I don't have the cognitive dissonance I once had, girl. I can't do it. Also, in terms of withdrawing the support, like, I don't know what the hold is these celebrities that don't care if y'all live, eat, or die have on you to where you can't retract your support for them doing something problematic. Like, I don't know what the hold is, but it's literally not hard to say, oh, they did or said something that is morally bankrupt in me as a person of values or integrity. But that's when I had to understand that a lot of people don't have any integrity. They don't stand for anything. So, it shouldn't realistically, theoretically be hard to say, oh, this is wrong. They support something that's not wrong and this doesn't align with my values. Let me pull the plug. But I don't know. I think a lot of it is desirability, which we'll get into later into the text, that allows people to just sweep so much under the rug, and they protect people from critique because they find them so desirable. And most of the time, the people most protected by desirability politics are fair skinned, lighter skinned people, which the Black community places at the top of their hierarchy due to white supremacy. But we'll get into all that as the book goes on. But yeah, I mean, anytime you do, even 20 years later, try to offer up critique about some of these people, there is so much kickback. I will say that I do see more of a push for Black women. I know Black women collectively. I don't know what the Black men's is doing these days, but we do push for each other to garner more support towards dark-skinned artists that would otherwise go overlooked due to colorism, just supporting Black women in general. And we are also doing a lot of vetting as Black women collectively to say, hey, what's their politic? Are they for the people? Are they trying to uplift other Black women, other Black people? Or, do they kind of have a politic where, they do have some isms going on? They practice colorism, texturism, featureism. Like, what's their politic before we do garner the support? But once, we realize, oh, they're for the people, they want to uplift all Black women as well, let's all rally behind them. I do see that 20 years later. Okay, y'all, so the next chapter is SBF. And I was like, what is SBF? So SBF stands for single Black female, which would apply to me. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? Michael Porter goes on to say, the problems facing African Americans would be worse if it were not for grandmothers, elderly grandmothers, rearing their grandchildren or helping their daughters rear the children. Where are the brothers slash father? Where are they at? Where are they at? Y'all, with the podcast mics, where do y'all know? Like, where are they at? I know that y'all rather spend y'all's time villainizing single black mothers, single mother homes. I know y'all want to villainize the parent that stayed so damn bad, but I'm with Mr. Porter. Where are the fathers at? Like, where are they doing? Like, where are they at? Did they all go? Like, what's going on? Mr. Porter goes on to say, under this wicked value system, men are conditioned to love women based on facial beauty, hair, breasts, behinds, legs, thighs, and women's willingness to let men enjoy these assets. This diabolical system encourages women to attract men with their body parts. Women are encouraged to use looks to obtain a mate, especially a mate with a good job. As a result, men are attracted to what women reveal to them: pretty faces and attractive bodies. After becoming accustomed to his woman's body, too many men eventually turn their attention to the body of another woman. This is a sick game of man meets woman, man has sex with woman, man becomes disinterested with woman, man seeks and meets another woman, man leaves broken heart and lonely children along the way. Such madness usually takes place after every superficial dating game in which both men and women avoid serious discussion and manifest little, if any, patience before becoming sexually intimate. Mr. Porter goes on to say, the so-called romance of a relationship is illusional. We go to the movies, walk through the park, tell jokes, send flowers, and then we have sex and fall out. American society has taught us to act like this. Mr. Porter goes on to say, so many African American women are having to go to court to force men who once loved their fine bodies to now pay child support. Many of these brothers who have difficulty paying child support were once able to squeeze out enough money for movies, hotels, and anything else that made it easier to get sex from a woman. He is reading, like he's reading down. I don't really have any additional input for these excerpts because the information is so clear cut. I mean, this is literally the dynamic. It's you find a woman attractive based off of very superficial sexual themes. You try her out, you see what she's about, because at the end of the day, women are just objects, and sexual objects, girl. Duh, you knew that. And then once the consequence of sexual intercourse, which is a child, comes about, then it gets a lot less interesting to the male. One movie that is kind of, I don't know, I guess I would call it independent film that a lot of Black women should watch if you haven't already. I know a lot of Black women already are into it. But it is Another Girl on the IRT. And researching that movie further, I learned that one of the goals of the film was to emphasize the pressure and the differentiation of gender roles in sex and childbearing. And it's so crazy. Like, men can literally have this moment of pleasure with a woman. It's so funny how, like, a moment of pleasure for a man can literally result in years of pain, sorrow, and strife for a woman who has to, bear children as a result of just one sexual interaction. And I also just hate. Like, I know as a woman, I know the feeling of, even just, being with a man sexually, and then, maybe down the road he just wasn't as engaged, and just off of the strength of that, how that would make me feel, much less if it got to a point where I had laid down with someone, and then some of the disrespect that I've seen ensue from these men that just are like, I don't want anything to do with that kid, and I don't like you either. And like, just some of the magnitude of the disrespect from someone that, like Mr. Porter is saying, like, once loved your body, once, like, might have made love to you so passionately, laid with you so passionately, and how they just disregard you, like, just totally dehumanize you, like you don't matter, your children don't matter, your offspring don't matter. But even just thinking about, like, their offspring, like your children are an extension of you, and for men to just be able to abandon that as well, I think that's really telling about how a lot of men feel about themselves, the value that they find in themselves. And I'm so sorry for women, especially mothers. I do remember a tweet talking about how if you talk to mothers, they tend to have the saddest stories in life. And it is so true. Like, when you just hear, like, even my own mother's story, I'm like, yo, she deserved so much better. And I seen another tweet that was like, my mother's story is my villain origin story. And yeah, it is. Like, mothers deserve so much better. They do not deserve the villainization. And we'll get more into, as the text goes on, the male to female relationship dynamic and kind of what intentions women go into these relationships with versus what men go into them with, and it'll make a lot more sense. But Mr. Porter goes on to say, the dynamic of materialism in American society places extreme stress on African male victims of white supremacy. Extreme materialism causes people to view potential mates from a monetary perspective only. This is not good. With more African American males in prison than in college, there promises to be some rough days ahead for the African American female and male relationships. There promises to be some rough days ahead for the African American male to female relationships, written in 2001. Mr. Porter, if you only knew, like, if you only knew that how rough them days, how rough them days are. I don't have the statistics in front of me right now. But this concept of a white male patriarchal power structure in which men find their worth in, their monetary value and their ability to generate income, and how that plays into their self-esteem, and the fact that right now a lot of Black men are just not economically giving at this time. Like, I have to speak anecdotally right now because I don't have the statistics right in front of me. But I know that a lot of the Black women in my sphere, outside of my sphere, are a lot more higher earning than the majority of Black men. And this, like I said, that being tied to their sense of self-worth, and again, that resentment of thinking that women should be inferior to them, yet you're seeing women reach higher heights. It is a very deadly combination. I actually learned today of yet another femicide story in which a Black woman business owner was murdered by her former love interest who was working for her at her business. He had some level of jealousy towards her. Again, probably that belief that she was inferior to him. Why is she excelling? And of course, the element of jealousy. and he ended her life, and that's just a drop in the bucket. Currently, at this time, Black men are killing Black women and girls every 5 hours in America due to a lot of the themes that Mr. Porter is speaking on, that displacement of anger, that dissatisfaction with where they're sitting economically, and then just general misogyny, general hatred of women, and then those perceived instances of disrespect from women. It's proving to be a very fatal combination for a lot of Black women in this country. And I send us a lot of love and healing energy, and I pray that someday soon we can stop being so indifferent to the rising Black femicide rate, as it is already out of control and it's getting worse. It's only going to get worse. And it's time to have the conversation. It's time to stop being so indifferent to the plight of Black women. It's been time. Mr. Porter's trying to wake this up 20 years ago. Mr. Porter ends the chapter saying, healthy African American female to male relationships will give us power and the power to become self-determining as an African family. So I had to really get into, what is the definition of self-determining? So self-determining is pretty much the ability to govern yourself or govern your group, the group of people that you come from, the ability to properly and proactively, positively govern and have agency over the things that go on in your community. At this time, the Black community is way too influenced by the white patriarchal power structure, and so many don't even realize the role that they're playing in the harm. Okay, y'all, we're gonna wrap up this segment with chapter 4, which is AIDS in African American women. Mr. Porter states, in Africa, 13 women are infected for every 10 men. Across the Atlantic, African American women comprise 60% of new AIDS cases, with an AIDS rate 16 times that of white women. Further complicating matters for African American women is the fact that at least 38% of new AIDS cases are contracted through heterosexual means, which means they are having sex with Black men. The love of a woman's life may lead to the loss of her life. Bisexuality among African American men must be examined. Many African American ministers, politicians, and men of various professions are gay and bisexual and married, as are many white men. And this is in 2001. This is in 2001. This is in 2001. And these are conversations that are still being had. Again, the bisexuality of Black men still has yet to be addressed, and that is largely due to so much homophobia in the Black community. And it's sad that we haven't really progressed in that matter. There's absolutely nothing wrong with living in your truth and being bisexual, being gay, having any orientation, presenting as any gender. There's nothing wrong with that. And still, we are, just widely homophobic in this community, to the point that people don't feel that they can live in their truth. And I feel that Mr. Porter is bringing this up more so in a sense that he mentions too that a lot of men marry women for social reasons. Again, due to just so much homophobia in the Black community, or just within their family, or their immediate social structure. They might not feel safe enough to present that way or present fully in their sexual orientation. And it's nothing wrong with that, but there is that level of deceit, not just not even in your sexual orientation, but in claiming to be monogamously tied to a person, yet you are having extramarital, or you're dealing with other people sexually without protection, and the person that you're with, that you're tied to, officially has no knowledge of that. So you're putting their sexual health at risk. And this, again, it's not at all, it has nothing to do specifically with someone being gay and doing so. It would be the same. It's just that idea of you're not being open with extra affairs that you're having and putting, your partner at risk. You know what I'm saying? And that goes to say the same, even if you're dealing with extra women on the side, if you're not bisexual and you're dealing with extra women on the side, and your partner is not knowledgeable of those extra sexual affairs that you're having, and you might not be, using protection. It's trash. It's trash. And it definitely just that lack of sexual discipline, that lack of sexual regard for yourself, in addition to your partners. Let's keep going. Mr. Porter goes on to say, then there are the drugs, heroin and crack cocaine. Here the dynamics are simple. Crack and heroin addicts can't keep jobs long and must resort to selling their bodies amongst other crimes in order to fund their habit. Heroin addicts often share needles, thus passing HIV along. Some crack and heroin addicted men, too, sell their bodies, generally to homosexual men. Some men with wives or girlfriends sleep with crack addicted female prostitutes. It is truly a scary situation. So, here Mr. Porter is just speaking more on the ways in which, these infections just continue to grow and grow. The number of these infections continue to grow and grow, and the ways in which these infections grow. Mr. Porter goes on to say, sisters must also make men wait, really wait, before engaging in sexual activities with men. There is too much impatience in the African American female-to-male relationships. We move too fast and end up suffering too much. Women must sit and seriously talk amongst themselves with men about sexual activity and AIDS. Straight to the point, basic conversations must take place on a regular basis. Fear of talking is a luxury none of us can afford. African American women must also work with political officials, schools and hospital administrators, and board members to develop programs designated to decrease the number of African and African American women with AIDS. Racist medical practices, including racist attitudes, must be put on the table and dealt with. And we're seeing that even with the birth mortality rates with Black women, even 20 years later, racist attitudes. And I do feel that that's being put on the table. We are having those conversations, but that's kind of off. That's kind of off, but that is too another example of racist attitudes in the medical system that Black women have to deal with even still. But yes, I think this is a result of a couple of things. One, again, we'll have to get more into it as the text goes on, but women enter these what's now called situationships, talking ships, with different intentions than the men. Again, it's kind of loaded because it is a result of those conversations. One, those conversations not being had, hey, what are your intentions for me, for us, whatever. They rather just go with the illusion of what's being presented. But then there's also a level of coercion that goes on with men where they're telling women what they want to hear in order to get the sex from them. a lot of the time too, I think it's like a lower self-esteem in the Black women. And a lot of Black men are hypersexual, very fixated on sex. And there's also been a lot of discussion about how many of them don't understand intimacy outside of sexual interaction, and they don't understand other forms of intimacy, and how I don't know. I don't know if we as women just kind of, well, I no longer do, perceive that as them wanting to present us with different forms of intimacy, maybe down the road, or, this is how they show their intimacy. And I don't know if we just give it up just to get some kind of connection or grow closer to the person, but it's being made really clear. And the number of women that are being abandoned after they, have sex with these men and they have their children, that sex was just that. It was just sex to them. It's not that. It's not going to lead to anything else. It doesn't mean that they value you. It doesn't mean that, you're special to them. It's no, like they had sex with you almost in a, like, I just feel like after a while, like, just hypersexuality, I have a hard time not viewing it as like animalistic after a while. So that's kind of why, I don't know, me personally, like, I definitely, and it could be just me getting older, but I'm absolutely having a lot of conversations with men beforehand. And I'm also a person that if I'm not intellectually attracted to you, I'm repulsed by you, like physically. Like if I hear your mindset and I hear kind of your stance on things, and I'm not intellectually stimulated by that, or I'm turned off by that, I literally don't want you to touch me in any capacity. I don't even want to engage with you for real. So I know that me personally, I don't know if it's just a matter of you getting more self-esteem about you, getting more set in your values, and even just valuing yourself and knowing, what kind of partner you would like, that helps a lot because it allows you to kind of vet and take your time and not feel so rushed and, oh, well, I guess I'll just go with Jim because, he's giving me attention right now. I don't know how he feels. I don't know if he's anti-Black. I don't know if he's colorist. I don't know if he would, who cares? He's here. He's giving me attention right now. Like, I just think that self-love would help a lot of women buy themselves some time to kind of say, okay, well, I don't have to just give it up to Jim, because if I don't get this male validation right now, it's not going to be the end of the world. Or, it's not that deep. Like, it's not that deep. It's not, girls. It's not that deep. But yeah, there is definitely like a pressure, like rush, like urgency in these Black male and female relationships. IDK, I don't know. I think too that a lot of it is we don't have these conversations because we might not like the response to some of the questions that we ask. I mean, if you're kind of already living in an illusion that, oh, I'm special to this person, they only deal with me, despite not seeing any evidence of that and just going off what they're telling you, do you really want to sit down from someone and say, oh, are you dealing with anybody else? Are you messing with anybody else? For them to say, oh yeah, I am so and so, so and so. It's gonna crack your illusion. You're not gonna want to deal with, I mean, I personally don't care. I'm like, oh, period. Okay, well, I'm not dealing with you anymore. But if your, self-esteem is so low to the point that you would rather have a piece of a man, then you're not gonna want to ask those tough questions because you're not gonna want the tough responses. Also, in terms of sexual history, we absolutely should be normalizing, hey, what are your test results? Or when was the last time you were tested? Or, what efforts are you putting into maintaining both yours and my sexual health? Also, just like sexual discipline in general, y'all, like I keep stressing, I'm personally so turned off by hypersexual or hyper fixation on sex, because that to me shows a lack of sexual discipline, which shows that you have a lack of discipline in probably some other areas of your life, which you're probably not doing too much building as a man if you are lacking discipline. You aren't dedicated, you don't have discipline to stay dedicated towards building anything. So I'm personally turned off by that. But you know, hey, whatever. Girls gonna do what the girls gonna do. But we do need to start having these conversations. Mr. Porter goes on to say, African American women must also seek to ease the psychological pain which is on a daily basis experienced by their people. I believe that much of the pain comes from frustrated, deferred dreams, which lead to feelings of anger, depression, and hopelessness. Drugs such as alcohol, crack, and heroin are used as a means of escape from the pain. Sometimes sex is used as a means of escaping from psychological and emotional pain. Yeah. Yeah. There were definitely so many instances, especially in my early college days, where, you know, I had a lot that I was sorting through. You know, it's just so hard to navigate, you know, adulthood, but more specifically like Black womanhood. And there were so many things that I was coming to terms with, coming into the knowledge of, you know, stepping out and being independent, being exposed to more ideas. And there was a period where I was escaping through sex, and you know, it was under the guise of I'm experimenting and I'm, you know, I'm learning about sex. I was like a late bloomer, so it was under the guise of, you know, I'm just exploring. And really, it was not that. It was not that, because I was not valued in that time period in the ways in which I was ultimately exploiting myself. But I don't know, y'all. I do see many instances where I was using sex as escapism, and I'm probably even guilty of doing that, like not presently, but in the recent past. I do recall like having moments where I might have had like a bad day, or might have been like stressed, and you know, I was like, oh, okay, you know, maybe, yeah, maybe it wouldn't hurt to go out to dinner with so and so, and then and there's nothing that comes of it. But it's like you got your sexual gratification, but it was just like escapism. There was no form of connection behind it. And I don't know. And y'all don't be trying to clock me, because like I said, probably recent past, but your girl has been celibate for a minute now, just due to the trash takes, the realization of just how misogynistic a lot of men are has caused me to go into a period of celibacy. So, but yeah, there definitely was some instances. Mr. Porter ends this chapter saying, AIDS is designated to rid the white supremacists of their genetically dominant enemies. So while it is necessary to get all African people to practice abstinence, safe sex, and stop drug usage, a major thrust must be the undoing of the white supremacist value and behavioral system that is simply hell-bent on getting rid of all African people. Yeah, and I think that's a good note to end on, because I do think that if we're going to be pursuing these goals of becoming a more self-determining people, our focus should be about we should be minimizing the amount of harm that we are doing to each other within this community, so that we can get more unity and ultimately destroy the white patriarchal system. That should be, so many people are just cozying up to white supremacist values and just doing the work of white supremacy without a white insight. We need to stop. Like, we literally need to stop. It is not divisive to call out things like Black femicide and the harm that Black women face. It's not divisive to call out colorism, features, and things that cause other Black people harm. That's not divisive. To let these things go on and expand and continue causing Black people harm collectively is divisive. To call it out and to seek solutions is unifying. It should be viewed as unifying, but it's not. So I just hope that we find the plot. I do. But yes, y'all, that is all I got for this segment. In the next segment, we will do a couple more chapters and get into those until we ultimately finish the book. But so much love to Mr. Porter for even opening up the floor for this discussion. And I hope that you know how grateful I am to have come across this text and just how much it is helping me, even 20 years later, just kind of unpack a lot of my experiences through black girl, teenage, and womanhood, and how you're presently helping me with this information and with these observations that you've made. So thank you so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.